saw you standing there the first time that I laid my eyes on you. I couldn't get you out of all the thoughts I had. And now the end is near, and I just couldn't seem to get it right. I guess it's time to go. Yeah.
And we're rolling. Back for another episode of the Coastal Blaze podcast. We're joined today by Meghana. Meghana, how are you doing?
Hey, Izzy, I'm good.
Okay, what's up, Mom?
I'm doing great, man. It's a beautiful day.
Okay, Meghana, do you want to start off by just explaining to people that don't know you a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Meghana. I grew up in Fort Bragg. Went to school at UC Berkeley, just graduated about a year ago, and now I'm a product manager at Visa, and I live in San Francisco.
Nice. So that's a good transition. Why don't we just start off talking about what you do now? What is a product manager at Visa? What a day in the life of Meghana like?
Yeah. I guess a good place to start is talking about product management as a job, right? It's a super kind of vague job title to have. And that's because product management kind of sits at the intersection of a bunch of different crossroads in a tech company, usually. And really, you're sitting between engineering and technology and business-focused teams like sales and marketing. And you have to interact with kind of all these different groups. And because you're sitting at this intersection, there is a huge spectrum of things you could be doing. And a lot of times at different companies, product management means different things. And even within companies, you have different types of product managers. So there's really a spectrum from really technical product managers who are working really closely with engineering teams to more business-focused product managers who are more focused on how do we grow revenue, how do we grow a product, how do we enhance the business, as well as anything, in between that. And so you can have product managers that come in with, computer science, engineering degrees. You can also have product managers that come in with more business-focused degrees, and there's also like the type of product managers who come into product management after getting an MBA. And so you come in with whatever experience you have, and you bring that and apply it to product management. And because it's so dynamic, there's a lot of different ways you can do that and ways you can specialize. For me right now, what I'm in is a 2-year new grad rotational program at Visa, which is basically, it's a full-time job, but what I'm doing is every 6 months, I'm on a different team working on different projects, which is really cool. And what really drew me to that is, like I said, product management is so broad. And so with those 4 rotations, I really thought I would get exposure to all the different disciplines within product management and kind of figure out where my niche sits in that spectrum that I talked about. So right now I'm on my 2nd rotation. And it's a little bit more on the business end of the spectrum where I'm working on launching a product right now. And really working with marketing and sales to ensure we have a really successful launch.
So this one was business. The one before that was more centered on what exactly?
I would say my previous rotation was also a little bit more on the business end of the spectrum. Okay. So my previous rotation, I was working on a product at Visa that it's fairly new. And so the team was really trying to launch the product and, win some big clients to get some momentum and start off. So it was focused on that. I would say it was more business development focused.
Do you prefer the one you're in now or the one you did last time so far? Or is it both kind of, you enjoy it?
I think for me, I learned a lot of great things in my first rotation, and I'm learning a lot of great things in my second rotation. And what I really like is that the learnings don't overlap so much. Like there are core skills that you build that are great and you continue to use them no matter what you're doing. But like my day-to-day activities are really different. And so I get to learn different things that way. So I wouldn't really say I have a favorite, but I'm enjoying what I'm working on right now because also as I'm, getting some more experience and building my own credibility at the company, I'm getting a little bit more responsibility and a little bit more ownership of the things that I'm working on. So that's really exciting.
Nice.
Cool. That's awesome.
What would you say are like qualities of like a product manager? Like if you were, for example, if there's like someone graduating high school or someone graduating college, and they're like, Meghana, what is it like? What's your job like? What would you say like the qualities? It's like, okay, well, if you do this job, you should probably be good at this and this and this. Yeah.
So like I said, the spectrum, you're going to specialize and have maybe a different set of specialized skills that you need for the type of product management you're doing. But I think at its core, to be a product manager, you need to really be a problem solver. So be able to think about problems and think about solutions. And I feel like every job description kind of says that, but it is really true. Like you're going to be given challenges and you're going to hit roadblocks and you're going to be blocked by other teams. Sometimes intentionally, unintentionally, or you're going to, not have marketing funds to market your product, or you're not going to have the ability to, you have to be able to win over people to your product, right? So I think being a problem solver is one, being persuasive is another one. So in the sense that you need to convince people that the product you're owning or this initiative that you're running is worth their time, so worth them listening to you about it, worth them supporting you on it, getting a lot of times funds to, have the money to finance the projects you're working on. So being able to tell a persuasive story. And I think the biggest thing is, as a product manager, you're working with people. You're working with engineering people, with marketing people, sales people, and you really have to understand how those different groups operate and be able to operate within them and, win them over to whatever it is you're doing. Because at the end of the day, as a product manager, you're not necessarily delivering anything. You're responsible for getting all these other teams that you work with to deliver on your behalf a lot of times.
Do you like what you're doing?
Yeah, I do really like what I'm doing. I think it's really interesting. I think the payments industry was not something that I spent a lot of time thinking about prior to this job. And so being in this industry is really eye-opening to just see, like, payments are around us every day and we make payments all the time and we never really think about what happens in the back end.
Right.
And so to really dive deep on that and learn about, what happens every time I swipe my card, every time I make a Venmo transaction, and every time I make a direct deposit into my bank account, like all these different payments that are happening are so interesting. And so I think that is what I find super interesting about my job, is just the ubiquity of the product that we're working on. And it's something that, I think will be helpful, and it has learnings that I'll carry with me for the rest of my career.
Did you always want to be that when you were like, did you see yourself in a career like this when you were younger, or what did you want to be when you were younger?
Like kid young, like child?
Yeah. We just transitioned into that, like growing up.
Yeah, I think as a kid, the first job I ever really wanted was to be a veterinarian because I just love animals and I thought I could help animals. What I realized pretty quickly, though, is that while I really love animals, seeing them in pain or struggling was really hard for me.
Did you have an animal growing up or a pet growing up?
I've always had, so I had a dog growing up and now I have 2 other dogs. So I've always had pets. Oh, I guess we also have a chicken too.
Nice.
And so it was, I realized I couldn't do that. Seeing animals in pain, I couldn't handle that. So then I really wanted to be a teacher. And actually that's something I still think about it as doing that. I don't know how I do that or when, but.
You should do it. I'm biased. I'm a teacher, so. But it's
Sell her on it.
Yeah.
What are the benefits of being a teacher?
Well, not right now because of COVID.
What is it like? Yeah, I've been meaning to ask. What is it like right now? Like setting up a
teacher right now.
Man, dude, I almost lost my head today. I was literally so stressed out because it just seems like no one really knows what they're doing. It's like everyone has an idea of like what they want to do, but no one's had the experience. No one's ever experienced something like this before. So it's like you could say, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. And then when you go there, a kid's throwing a tantrum, a kid doesn't show up, a parent's mad at you about this, someone else is calling you about something else. It's just like there's so much other things going on that it's just a lot to handle. And so like I've been getting parents email me and call me and ask me, so what's going on with this year? And like we're not getting any information from the school. Like what's going on? And I have to text them, oh, I was going to call you this Monday with more information. And like it just seems like there's just a lot of loose ends right now.
Yeah.
So it's been super stressful, but I'm super excited to see the kids. Because that's one of the things that I enjoy most about my job is the interaction that I have with the kids, especially the group that I work with. They're categorized as emotionally disturbed. So they've experienced some like traumatic life experience growing up. And so that doesn't allow them to kind of be in the general ed classroom because they just either like throw a fit or they don't want to do the work or they don't want to listen to the teachers. So they put them in my classroom and I kind of work with them on social bonds and stuff like that and trusting people again, because a lot of these kids, they have trust issues. They don't trust adults anymore. So when I go to class in person and I can like create that bond, that relationship with kids, that's the best part for me. But now that I can't do that with COVID because I'm just seeing through a screen, it's just like I feel like there's a disconnect. So it's been super difficult for me to do that right now. But we're gonna try it out and see how it goes. Because at the end of last year, trying to do it through Zoom and Google Meet and all that stuff, it really wasn't working. I only had like 2 kids show up.
Really?
Yeah. Like
out of how many?
Out of 7 at that time. So I have a small classroom, but still like. That's ridiculous. Like I used to have all 7 show up every single day without fail. And then as soon as we moved on to the online learning, 2 kids showed up.
And how old are these kids?
So I teach elementary 3 through 5th, but I also special case where I have a 1st grader in my classroom. He's now going to be a 2nd grader. So anywhere between like 7 and 10, 11 years old.
Does the school
range?
Does the school provide like computers for the kids?
Yeah, that's super cool with something like we never had growing up. They have, every kid has a Chromebook. It's so crazy because I know growing up, we all had all these books and big heavy books and like all these workbooks we work in. They have Chromebooks and everything's online. So literally it's like go to your Google Classroom and here's a Google Doc of the assignment that you're working on, or check out this video and you can directly link it to YouTube or whatever. So it's super cool. It's super innovative and I really enjoy working with it, but I just don't think it's the best form of teaching a kid. I think they get a lot more out of it in person.
Absolutely.
So it kind of sucks, but you got to do what you got to do. And until this whole thing clears up, then I'm going to have to learn how to be a great teacher online.
Yeah. I feel like that's such a hurdle to try to get kids to like log in and do school for like more than 1 hour online. Like some college kids can't even do that.
I'm trying to have my kids go for 4 hours. What I'm thinking about doing is having it 8:30 to 12:30. And then, cause we're supposed to be only supposed to get 4 hours per day with the kids. And I'm thinking about it. It's possible because I have like breaks in between. Like I have all these fail states just in case it doesn't work out. But honestly, I feel like after an hour, these kids are going to get burnt out. But like I even have a plan. Like we're going to eat breakfast together. We're going to eat lunch together. Like, it's going to be super weird. But like I'm going to tell everybody to show up at 9 o'clock with cereal with your breakfast. And we're going to eat and just talk about whatever you want to talk. And then like after 30 minutes of our breakfast, then we're going to transition into math or journal writing or whatever. So I just have to kind of think on top of my feet, just like what's the best thing for these kids and how am I going to keep them engaged without getting them overwhelmed. But
dang, for 4 hours a day.
Yeah.
What do you have planned to like fill out the whole 4 hours?
Well, I'm trying to mimic the schedule that we had previously when we were in class in person. And basically it kind of looks like we have morning breakfast and then we have a journal write. I have mainly fifth graders in my class, so I'm going to try to get them to write in complete sentences because a lot of them struggle with that. I struggle with that sometimes.
Yeah.
And so that transitions into math, and then they have a little break, and then they have language arts, and then some like art project, science-based project, something fun at the end. Leave on a high note and go from there. Yeah, but I enjoy teaching. It's super fun, super rewarding. I know I go home every day and I'm like, I'm making a difference in these kids' lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's where I would try to sell you with teaching. It's definitely fun. And that's something because I grew up wanting to be a teacher. And then I grew up also hearing that, oh, teachers don't get paid well. And they
I heard that too.
Happy jobs and blah, blah, blah. And that talked me out of it. Because that's why when I went to college, I switched because of that. I was like, I can't be a teacher, even though I really wanted to, or it was interesting to me growing up. And then it wasn't until towards the end of college where I was like, dude, I could totally still do that. Like, that's definitely still a passion of mine. I think it'd be interesting. I think I'd be good at it. Like, why not give it a shot?
Yeah.
And I'm definitely glad I did, for sure.
Do you feel like having like a little brother that age kind of helps out?
Oh, absolutely. I feel like he's like I'm his dad, and that's what I always tell him.
Yeah.
But it also helps that he's the same age group as the kids that I mainly work with at elementary school at Danny Grace. So it's like I go home and I feel like I'm still teaching, but it's like it's a fun thing. It's like I was like, dude, I just work with one of my kids at home. Like I can show you this. I can teach you. So I'm a teacher at home. I'm a teacher at school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's your little guinea pig.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Meghana, do you know, like, if you were to be a teacher, do you know what subject or what age group you'd want to teach?
I'm really not sure. I guess for me, I was really interested in teaching because I feel like education is so important, right? Like I feel like education, and it's been proven by studies too, right? That education is really the thing that creates long-term lasting effects and changes the trajectory of people's lives. So I feel like what you're doing is so important, Gabe, and like all the teachers out there. And I'm so grateful that I was able to have really good teachers growing up too. That made a huge difference in my life. I honestly feel like I'd be really interested to teach high school.
I could see you as a high school teacher.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
What subject?
Probably like history. I love history.
Oh, you're going to say PE or something. History?
Yeah, I loved history. I honestly almost was a history major in college. Like I was really considering it.
Really?
Yeah.
That history's super interesting.
What part of history, like what's your favorite, or what did you like about it?
What I like about history is I think it's so important to know all these things that happened in the past, right? That because everything has a ripple effect. And so many of the problems or even the good things that we see today are based on things that happened, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And before that, 100 years ago, like everything has a ripple effect. And I think it's so important to understand that past to understand how we got to where we are now. And that's really the way we're going to solve our problems, right? Is by unpacking and untangling all of these really complex issues that have happened over decades. So that's why I really like history. And I feel like it's really important. And that's the other thing is I feel like a lot of times, especially as young people, we don't think about history too much, or it's really tedious to learn, right? It's a lot of dates. It's a lot of
Yeah.
kind of details that are hard to keep track of. But I think it's so important. And I think the more people know, the more empowered we are to do better.
Couldn't agree more.
And when did those thoughts like, oh, I might want to be a teacher, like start happening when you were growing up?
I think really similar for me. I have a younger sister. She's not that much younger than me. She's only 2 years younger than me. But I would always try and like, and also growing up, she, like we always did everything together, and she always wanted to do whatever it was I was doing. And so she would like try and do my homework with me. I would try and teach her things. I don't know. I would literally, she'll tell you, she'll probably roast me. But like, I used to like just try and teach her things all the time.
Even when she didn't want to.
Yeah, even when she didn't want
I'm
to.
gonna tell you how to do
I was
that.
like, you need to, you need
feel
to learn
that.
how to do this. I think it was also like my parents maybe wanted us to do that together. I don't know. But yeah, I think it came from that, like really enjoying teaching her how to do things and just, I think my parents also always reinforced how powerful an education was. And I grew up with that really kind of drilled into me. And I believe it. I've seen the research. I took some classes in college as well where I got to dive into that topic a little bit more and like look at the effects of early childhood education on the way people live after that. And I'm very convinced that it makes a huge difference in people's lives. And it's truly the thing that we can use to equalize the playing field, right? People start off at different points, right? Like the start line might be in one place, but some people start at the start line. Some people start a few yards back. Some people start 100 yards back.
Totally.
And education is really the thing that can bring everyone up to the same pace and up to the same speed. And then from there, you can do what you want with your opportunities.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
You brought up your parents.
Yeah.
Are they from the States?
They're not. So my parents are both from India. Yeah. My dad got here in the late 80s, I think, and my mom in the early 90s.
And did they go to school?
Yeah. So education, I think where it comes from is education is super important in India. And also it's not as easily accessible as it is here, right? Like we all have access to a public education that's free. And, you know, we can get into the details and the nuances of that. And like not all public education is equal and the difference between private and public and whatnot in the United States. But in India, especially in the time my parents were growing up, everything was private. Education cost money. You had to be able to afford to go. And that it was really like a privilege. But both my parents, you know, were lucky enough to be able to go to school, and their families really valued education as well. So they did get to go to school. They did end up earning the equivalent of what we would call like a 4-year degree here in India. It's a little bit different, but they did get to earn degrees. And then they came over here.
And they did
That's
that all
awesome.
in India? They did that all the schooling?
Yeah, so my parents came pretty late. My dad came to the United States around 30 years, when he was around 30 years old. And my mom came a few years later, but around a similar age as well.
Yeah, that's super late.
It must be so scary, like to already be accustomed to life over there and then to come and just switch it up.
Yeah,
You know?
I mean, that's what I think about it. I mean, I'm only 23 years old, but at this point, you know, moving to another country would feel like I'm uprooting my entire life.
Totally.
Yeah. Just kind of like dropping what you're doing and just like starting a new like life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, I feel like, at least in my mind, kind of at 30 years old, I feel like I would be a little bit more settled in life.
You would hope so. Yeah. That's what I tell myself too. By 30.
That's
I
the
got my-
goal.
Yeah. I got to know what I'm doing. Like, I got to know where I'm at. Yeah.
And so it's kind of wild to think about like 7 years past where I am in my life right now, where my parents probably were also feeling settled or were starting to get to that point in their life. They uprooted everything and came here.
Took a huge risk.
Yeah.
So, okay, growing up in Fort Bragg, did you play any sports? Did you do anything that like kind of navigated you towards college? Like when did you start thinking of college?
I think my parents started thinking about college for me before I was born.
Yeah.
You graduating from high school was never a question. Going to college was never a question. At this point, going to grad school is not really a question. Like
Really?
it's more of when are you going to grad school? What are you going to grad school
Do you want to go to
for?
grad school?
I've thought about it a lot, actually. At first, I did kind of back to that career question. So after thinking about being a teacher, my next thought was I really want to be a lawyer. So I was always like, I go to law school after college. I realized I'm not sure if I want to be a lawyer or not anymore. And so I'm not sure if I want to go to law school. I've been thinking about getting an MBA. But I'm also not really sold if that's the thing that's going to get me where I want to be in life.
Right.
Which, yeah.
What made you want to be a lawyer?
I wanted to be a lawyer because I wanted to make things better. I wanted to, and that's a really nebulous thing to say. I guess I was specifically really interested in criminal law, and I felt like as a criminal lawyer, and specifically as interested in prosecution, I could do something to make the world better, to make the society better.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was kind of naive to think. I think there's a lot more complexity in the criminal justice system than I understood at the time, and I've come to understand more of, and I'm still learning about. And I wouldn't necessarily say that the criminal justice system as it exists today really serves justice to people. We don't have to get super
That's a
deep
hot
into
topic.
that. Yeah, we don't have to get super deep into that. But I would say, a quick plug, everyone should listen to the Serial podcast, season 3.
Who told us about? Oh, Anderson's daughter told us about Serial podcast.
Yeah.
Serial is really good. So I started listening to it in high school because my advisor, Miss CK, actually played it for us in class.
Okay.
And started listening to it there. I don't remember if we finished it or not, but anyway, I picked it up like 2 years ago again, and it's super good. Every season is like a different story, a different topic, and it's investigative journalism. And what I really like about them is that they go really deep into the details, but they don't kind of valence it one way or another by telling you how you should feel about those details.
I think that's super important. I hate when I'm listening to something and you can already tell like they're trying to persuade you in a certain way.
Yeah.
They're trying to paint it in a certain way. I'm like, no, I want to make my own opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's something that I always respected about Mr. Brown. He would always like teach you stuff, and we would ask him like, "Are you a Republican? Are you a Democrat?" And he's like, "I'm not going to tell you. Like, it's not my job to tell you what I am. Like, I'm just going to give you guys the information."
Yeah.
And as kids, we were like upset because we're just like, "Dude, just tell us. Like,
I
what's the
remember
big
that
deal?"
too, yeah.
But he was just like, "No, like it's not my job to do that." Shout out to Mr. Brown. But what kind of topics do they go into in Serial? Like, what kind of?
So every season's different. The first 2 seasons, the third season's a little bit different from the first 2, but the first 2 are basically, they look into, the first season is about this case. It was like a murder that happened in the 90s. And the guy who ended up going away for that crime has maintained prior, as he was going through the trial, and since that, he's innocent and it wasn't him.
Yeah.
And so they kind of, I guess one of his family friends or someone he knew reached out to them and was like, will you look into this? Will you explore his case? And so basically that's what they do, is they look through, they go through all the details. They go back and try and talk to witnesses, to attorneys, all of that stuff. And what I really like is they continually pose questions throughout the process. And they're questions that are both, do we really believe this detail that we've just uncovered, or how should we think about it? But they never really never answer those questions for you. They really pose them to you and you have to think about them. And that's what I really liked. And then the second season is about, I forget which branch of the military he was in, but basically this guy was captured by the Taliban and held as a prisoner there for 5 years. So he's also, I think, the longest person kept in captivity by the Taliban who survived.
Damn.
Dang.
And it's about him and you know, how he got to there, what happened to him while he was captured, what happened to him since then. So that was really interesting. And then the third season is, I think, really a great season. It goes into basically what is the criminal justice system in the United States. And we're not talking about policing. We're literally just talking about the court system. And what happens once you have been accused of a crime and you have to go to court, attorneys, judges, sentences, punishments, etc. And it's really interesting. So season 1 and 2, obviously they're focusing on one case at a time. Season 3, almost every episode is about a different case. And they kind of try and cover the entire case in the episode. There are some cases that go multiple episodes and are kind of, you know, they come back to, but that one is really interesting because they're looking specifically at East Cleveland's criminal justice system. They couldn't do the whole country, obviously.
Yeah.
And so they use that one as kind of a case study for the whole country. And I think it really showcases really clearly how much our criminal justice system is influenced by capitalism and by money, and how much you can pay, how much your bail, your defense, and just kind of the way it's become a business and the way it's become just this machine that doesn't really focus on justice anymore.
Yeah. It's scary to think like it could favor some people depending on money.
Yeah.
You know?
Gotta love America.
So going back to the lawyer question, or like the lawyer career, did you do anything? Like, were you involved in any activities with lawyering? Like with...
Yeah. So in high school, I was on the mock trial team. It's a big part of what I did in high school. It was super exciting.
What is that for someone who doesn't know what mock trial is? Can you kind of explain it?
So it is a national program, and what they have is they write these cases for you. So there is kind of a summary and overview of this is kind of the storyline of what happened, right? So one of the cases that we did was my first case in mock trial was this attempted murder case, actually. So they were pretty interesting cases. And basically what it was is that there was the story is that the person who died was this kid who had a genetic heart issue, and because of that that genetic heart issue was kind of amplified because he took Adderall. And so the question is whether or not the kid who sold him Adderall was responsible for his death. And so you get this whole story. It has a lot more details, all of this stuff. And then each side gets 4 witnesses. It's normally like, obviously the defendant and then some character witnesses and then an expert witness. So typically like a doctor, each side will get 1 expert witness and then like some other story witness, like role witnesses, right? Who are related to the crime, people who saw something that happened, heard something that happened, etc. What's really interesting is these cases are written very neutrally, right? So like there's no evidence one way or another whether or not it happened. It's up to you as a mock trial team to take what you've been given and put together a compelling narrative about why you think one thing goes this way or the other way.
So that's all you know about it, is that he had a heart condition and he took Adderall and that caused him to obviously die because his heart exploded or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's all you get told?
You get a little bit more.
A little bit more?
Yeah,
Okay.
you get a little bit more. So they'll talk about on this day, this person did this. And then he went to blah, 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 blah. And so there's more details. And the witness testimonies, each witness has like their own story written out as well, which give kind of supplemental details. But there's obviously holes and places where you have to make conjecture and kind of put together the pieces. And so how it works is every mock trial team at each high school has a prosecution team and a defense team. And so you'll typically have 2 attorneys for each side. And then you'll have opening statements, closing statement, pretrial motions, and then each side has 4 witnesses. And so it's really interesting. Like as an attorney, you have to learn all of the witness statements and know them inside and out. There's a pretrial motion normally to exclude or include some piece of evidence. And each side will argue that. And you have all these, you have to like formulate opening statements, closing statements. And then the witnesses have to learn their stories inside and out.
They can't read it from a script?
No. It's all, they have to learn
Hella
it.
pressure.
They have to learn it inside and out. And honestly, the witnesses they're so important. Like they make or break the team.
Right.
And you have to have...
I'm picturing somebody mess up. Are you kidding me? You have one job.
It's a lot of pressure.
And you as an attorney... And so, okay, the way it works basically, right? So every side has prosecution defense. When we go to the competition, our prosecution team will face another school's defense team. And our defense team will see another school's prosecution team. And we go to the actual courthouse, there are real judges who come in on the weekends and sit over these cases.
That's cool.
That's super cool.
And you're straight up, you're in a real courtroom.
Are you dressed up and everything too?
Yeah, you're dressed like a lawyer. Witnesses are dressed like witnesses.
Can your family come watch you?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Were you an attorney?
Yeah.
I know.
Was that your favorite, like to be an attorney? Or did you guys rotate the position?
Yeah. So I started out as an opening statement attorney, so a really small role. I literally just gave a 3-minute opening statement at the beginning of the trial. That was all I did my first year. And then my second year, I was a prosecution attorney. And my third year, I was also a prosecution attorney.
Nice.
But yeah, you go, so there's a real judge sitting there. And the crazy thing is just like, you have to know, because that's another thing about the judicial system, right? Like it can be so subjective depending on which judge you get. And obviously our cases are fabricated and, we're doing it for like as an academic exercise, but different judges will react differently to certain things. And you have to know like the scoop, like, do they care about this? Do they not care about this? Are
beforehand and all that stuff too? Dang.
Are they willing to give you the objection on this? Are they not going to be willing to, if you make too many objections, are they going to get mad and then just not approve any of your objections anymore? Damn. Or yes, you have to know a little bit about them, which is how it works in the real world too, right? There are certain judges who will never give you a certain objection because they believe that excluding information on that basis is counterintuitive to the judicial process or stuff like that. Or if you kind of make one mad, they're just like not going to swing in your favor anymore.
It's kind of messed up how they can do that, as a judge, like, or it should be like based on the law. It should be black and white, not like,
But on the other hand,
like that,
it does need to be subjective, right? You need to look at cases individually and consider all of the facts within them to make a decision. And so there are pros and cons in the sense that, yes, it's bad it's bad when a judge does it in a way that is that hinders the judicial process.
Mm-hmm.
But it's good though when you have a judge who's going to consider every case and make a sound decision based off of those facts. I think Serial Podcast does a really good job of showing the different ways different judges in that same courthouse affect cases. It's really interesting.
I'm definitely gonna check it out.
And so you guys do this, and then either win or lose. I'm guessing
Yeah.
wherever the judge decides or sides with.
Well, so the judge presides over the case, and so you can say like hearsay objection, whatever. I forget all the objections, but you also, that's the other thing is you have to learn all of the objections, both the witnesses and the attorneys, and you have to make, like, if you object, you have to have an argument for why the objection stands or why not. And so that was the other honestly, that was my favorite part about mock trial, is like when we're in the courtroom and we're doing the direct examinations and cross examinations of the witnesses, and there'd be an objection, and that's when you have a chance to really battle it out and argue with the opposing team whether or not the objection is valid, either for yourself or against them, depending on who's making the objection. Those were the best, honestly.
Were you guys any good?
Yeah, we made it to the final round every year. So we went to like the county finals every year.
Okay.
And then we went to state my junior year.
Oh, damn.
Where
Yeah.
state held that?
It's different every year. When we went, it was in Riverside.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Sick.
Dang. What kind of schools did you
San
guys?
Jose, Riverside? I forget. So you get one team from every county
Oh, okay.
in So how it works is you compete at the county level.
Okay.
Every county winner goes to state, and then one team from every state goes to nationals. California is a pretty competitive state for mock trial.
Really?
Yeah.
Where did
oh, sorry. You go.
No, you go.
I was gonna say, could you see differences like in the team? Like, were you guys a really good team, and then when you went to nationals or to the state, and then you saw the teams, you're like, oh man, we suck compared to them, or was it always pretty even?
Yeah, no, there's definitely differences in teams. I think when we went to state, it was the first time our school had ever been to state, because our mock trial program is not that old. I don't know if you guys remember Lily Shagru, but I'm pretty sure she started mock trial when she was in high school.
Damn.
I think that's what happened.
Oh.
It was a little bit before my time, so I'm not totally sure, but I'm pretty sure.
It's still
So,
fairly
but
new.
I do remember that, at least from my perspective, the mock trial team was pretty young. Our coaches, shout out Patrick and Amanda Pekin. They were amazing coaches, gave us so much of the time. Like, honestly, were great mentors to me. Still are great mentors to me. They'd been doing it for a couple years. So I think when I joined the team, it was their third year maybe coaching the team. And then their fourth year, we went to state.
Nice.
Are they lawyers?
They are. They have their own firm. They had their own practice in Fort Bragg. Actually, though, Patrick just became a judge.
Oh, really?
Oh.
Yeah. So he's going to be a judge in the Superior Court of Mendocino County.
Dang.
Congratulations,
Yeah,
Patrick.
good for him.
Yeah.
So that whole experience, did that make you just like want to be a lawyer even more, or were you just kind of like, I don't know
Makes
if
me
this is
want to
for
be one. Damn.
Sounds fun. Sounds
Yeah.
competitive.
Yeah, no, it's fun. It's competitive. Like I said, like when you get to really battle it out over the objections and hearsay charges and all of those things in court, like it's really exciting and it's really fun. I did think I wanted to be a lawyer, and mock trial, I really enjoyed mock trial, and it kind of reinforced that. Also, what I did though was I kind of did like this internship / apprenticeship with Patrick the summers between my sophomore and junior year and junior and senior year of high school. And basically he let me shadow him, and like, he basically like gave me a very realistic look at what being a lawyer looks like. And he would kind of walk me through different cases and stuff like that. Obviously, protecting the privacy and anonymity of all of his clients, but he
Right.
was trying to give me a look at what being a lawyer would be like. And that was super eye-opening to me. Also, so Patrick was a criminal defense attorney. It's kind of the opposite of what I said initially. Like, I wanted to be a prosecutor, but it was a really good look. And I got to go to court with him a few times. I did my senior project with him. He took me to the jail. We got to talk to one of his clients.
Wow.
That's scary.
No, it wasn't scary. It wasn't scary. But it was super eye-opening to me, and it made me realize though that law might not be the thing that I wanted to do.
Why?
I realized, to be quite honest, it was a lot of reading and a lot of writing and a lot of paper pushing, and it is really interesting because you do have to think really critically to do that. But I wasn't sure. I guess in my mind, I kind of like glorified, and it felt more like mock trial to me.
Yeah.
And it felt more like, in court, arguing with people and making things happen and dealing with people. I think for me, the big thing was it was not as people oriented as I thought it was going to be. And that kind of made me a little nervous. I wasn't sure if I was, cut out for it.
That makes sense. Because like whenever you see it in movies or in shows or
it's always
hear about it,
glorified.
yeah, it's always in court.
Yeah.
But they have to like prepare so much to get to that point.
There's a lot that happens behind the scenes to get there. But actually, I kind of decided early in college that maybe law school wasn't for me, and I just decided to explore other options. But I've never completely ruled it out. Like I'm honestly still considering going to law school and what that might mean for me.
Yeah.
Interesting.
You should always keep the door open. You never know.
Yeah.
So throughout high school, like how was the process like kind of setting yourself up for college? What was your high school experience like academically?
Yeah. I guess I always knew, like I said, I always knew I was going to go to college. I'm really grateful and really lucky that I had parents who were, it didn't matter what I wanted to do or where I wanted to go. They were going to figure out how to get me there.
Nice.
So all I had to do was really make myself a really good applicant for colleges. So taking as competitive a class load as I could. So I took all the APs our high school offered, doing extracurriculars too. I think the extracurriculars are great in the sense of they help you explore your own interests and passions also before college. So I did a lot of extracurriculars. I was in mock trial. I was in Interact Club. I played sports. What else did I do? I was in student council. Yeah.
You did a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More than we did.
More than I did. Yeah.
We just play soccer.
What kind of sports did you play?
So I played soccer, freshman through junior year. And then I had to stop, not had to stop, but I decided to not play soccer my senior year because our mock trial team needed some help. So Patrick and Amanda, had children and they got super busy and it was really hard for them to commit to being coaches. Totally understandable. Like they had a really young family. Their kids are awesome, by the way. But they had a really young family, so they couldn't, be coaching us full time anymore. Mark Boley, who was the high school counselor, also really awesome, was our teacher coach at the time when I joined mock trial. He also had just started his family when I was a senior in high school, so he also couldn't commit to it was a pretty big time commitment. Yeah. Also, mock trial, we would practice Tuesday, Thursdays, and Sundays for around 3 to 4 hours at a time.
Jeez.
Really?
So it was.
Where would you practice? At school?
Yeah,
or?
at the school. Yeah, so it was a pretty big time commitment to ask from both, Patrick, Amanda, and all three of them, and Mark. And so totally understand why that was difficult. And that was just, the time we spent together. We all also spent time outside of those practices, prepping our materials and practicing and getting ready.
Dang.
So it was a lot. It was definitely a lot. And so senior year, we didn't really have a teacher coach or an attorney coach. And so that's why I stopped playing soccer, because I decided to focus on mock trial. And we had just gone to state the previous year and I really wanted to go again. We unfortunately did not make it to state my senior year, but we still made it to the finals, which is, good enough. I also played basketball for a couple years, and then I played tennis all 4 years.
Oh, 4 years.
That's right.
Yeah.
Tennis is so hard.
It's very hard.
I've tried to get into tennis and I'm just bad. Like I just accepted that I'm just never going to be good at that sport.
It's hard.
It's so technical.
Tennis is great. It's such a mental game that I used to get so frustrated and so mad because when you lose in tennis or when something happens, it's literally your fault. There's nobody else you can blame or say.
It's definitely my fault when I would play. Yeah.
There's nothing else you can do. Like it's literally just you. It's your fault if something doesn't go right.
What was your favorite sport?
Tennis.
Tennis?
Yeah.
Was our tennis team good at all?
Our tennis team, I'm trying to remember. So my senior year, we won our league, I think. My junior year, I think we got up there. I would say tennis at Fort Bragg High School, though, and just in our county and our school district, it's small, it's rural. is a little different because we play co-ed tennis. So the teams are all mixed. When I was playing singles my junior and senior year, most of the time I was playing guys.
Oh, what the heck?
Was that hard?
Yeah, I mean, it was all right. I did okay. My junior year, I think I went like 50-50.
Uh-huh.
And then my senior year did a little bit better than that, I think. I literally, actually, not most of the time I was playing guys. I only played guys. I only played one girl the entire time I was playing singles.
Damn.
And that was my junior year. After that, I only played guys. Actually, I might have played someone my senior year who was a girl.
How do they calculate like who wins league? Do they just add up everyone's wins or?
Yeah, so how it works is every time we meet another school, right? So there's typically 3 singles players and then 2 doubles teams. So you have first singles, second singles, third singles, first doubles, second doubles. So you have 5 matches basically that are happening. Each match is a best of 3 set. Or it is, you have to win.
There's 3 games.
Yeah, there's 3 games and you have to win best of 3, right?
Okay.
And so at the end of the kind of meet, you would tally up which school won more. So did you win 3 out of 5 matches, 4 out of 5 matches, 2 out of 5 matches? And whichever school won more matches won the meet. And that was considered a win for us, even if not everyone on our team won, you know?
Yeah.
So we all had individual records and a team record. That's, I think my senior, I think we went undefeated. I don't know what it is.
Really?
I don't want to
That's
say
a bold
that.
statement.
I don't
Be
know.
careful,
It's kind
yeah.
of bold.
Oh, this
Who are like the
so-
powerhouses around here? Like who had like the best tennis program?
Mendocino is really good.
Really?
Anderson Valley, Boonville. I forget what their school is actually called, but that school, I think, I don't know. Do you guys remember if it was Boonville or Anderson
It's
Valley?
Anderson Valley,
Anderson
yeah.
Valley, yeah. And they were really good.
Damn.
Willits was also pretty good. Yeah.
Tennis.
Yeah.
I just didn't.
Actually,
I don't hear anything around.
So the number 1 singles person at Willits was a girl. And she was so good, like just crazy good. She beat all the guys and she won the league too. So we had
Did you
this
play
conference and
against
there's yeah, she smoked me. I played her when I was a junior and she was a senior. She was so good.
Really? Dang.
Yeah.
Shout out to her.
I would have known, yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot to ask when you were talking about mock trial, did anybody from your team or like when you were in high school, did anyone move on to be a lawyer or to study law? Or was it just kind of like an activity for
hobby.
everyone? Yeah.
I'm trying to think of people because everyone younger than me would still be in school. I just graduated a year ago. No one. Well, actually, you know, I'm trying to think. Sorry, that's like
You're
me
good.
thinking out loud. I think Lily Shagru might be going to law school.
Really?
I'm not. I was never super close to her in high school. Like she was a few years older than me. But I think when the last time I saw Patrick and Amanda, they mentioned that she might be going to law school.
Cool.
Yeah, and then I'm trying to think of anybody else. I'm really not sure. We'll see.
So, okay. So going back to high school, academically, what kind of student were you?
I guess you could say I was a pretty big nerd.
You could say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Super competitive?
I was pretty competitive about school. I think I'm competitive about everything, but definitely school. And that was also, super based on my parents. It was more of like, you need to be the best you can be at this. So, and that's all. And that was the other thing. It wasn't like my parents were like, you have to get straight A's and A's are the only thing we accept. It was more just like, you need to, you should apply yourself and you should take advantage of your education. You should be learning everything you can learn. And if you do all of those things, then we're happy. But also with kind of the implicit expectation that like, we also know you're capable of an A, so you should be getting an A.
Right.
Like if I truly was only capable of a B in a certain class, I think they would have accepted that. But it was more just like, you are capable of an A in this class, so you should be getting an A kind of thing.
So you held yourself up to like a high bar with grades?
Yeah.
You didn't get a single B?
I did not.
That's impressive.
It's very impressive.
I did not.
So you were top of your class or what?
It was. Yeah, I was valedictorian.
Damn.
That's such a flex.
Yeah. So
Coming out of
you
high
had to make a speech and everything and give it to the school, or how did that work out?
Yeah. Yeah, I did. I wrote a speech, gave it at graduation. It was interesting though, because we almost had a 3-way tie for valedictorian my year.
Mm-hmm.
So there were a
smart
lot
people.
of speeches. There were a lot of speeches at our graduation.
Also, there was multiple people who gave speeches. There?
Yeah.
Oh,
What was yours about?
Honestly, when I read it about like last summer when I came home after graduating from college, I moved all my stuff back into my house because I was living at home for a few months before I started work. And so I was like going through everything that I had, and like I truly hadn't gone through my room at home since I left for college.
Yeah.
And I found a copy of my valedictorian speech. So cringe.
She's
So
lying. She has this thing framed on her door.
Hung up on
look
the,
at it every
on
day.
the fridge.
Good night. No, you're like, go on. So what was it about?
It was super cringe. I think when I think about that time in my life, right, and maybe let me know if you guys felt this way or how you guys felt when you were graduating high school. But it felt like such an inflection point in our lives, right? And I also felt like you're like you're almost the oldest people in Fort Bragg for a little bit, right? Because there's not that many people here who are similar in age to us that we would consider like our peer group, right? Like most, like it or you have like you're under this impression or this feeling that you're like super old and you've experienced all of these things and you've made it to the end of high school. I was 17, like literally.
Right.
Yeah. And so I think I kind of felt like, oh, I know all this stuff. And at the same time, I was like, I don't know anything. I've just graduated from high school. I've never traveled by myself. I've never really done anything on my own. Like, yeah, I have my experiences growing up, which were great. And I was lucky to be exposed to a lot of different things growing up and grow from those things. But truly I didn't know anything about the world. Like I said, I thought I was going to be a prosecutor and change the world. Come to find out, the justice system in the United States is not what you think it is. And so I think it was a really weird feeling for me where I felt like I had all this experience and I knew so much. And like, also because after just having written college applications, right, your college applications, like, what do you have to offer to the world is basically the question they're always asking you.
Yeah, totally.
And you have to like, no matter how you feel about yourself in that question, you have to sell yourself to colleges, right? And so I had just gone through this whole period where I was like literally trying to sell myself to these colleges and talk about, oh, I know all this and I have all of this to offer and this is what I'm going to bring to your campus. And at the same time feeling like I knew nothing and I didn't know what I was going to do with my life and where I was going to go next.
Yeah.
And so I think my valedictorian speech was kind of that. It was this feeling of, I don't know where I'm going to go next. I don't know what it's going to look like. I have all these experiences so far. And just trying to make sense of that.
Super honest.
Yeah, it's very honest. I feel like that's something that I 100% agree. That whole I'm going to kind of conquer the world mentality. But a lot of the times, like as you guys know, like it doesn't work out the way you think it is, or like it's going to work out, And I think it's just like lack of knowledge or understanding of how it actually is or how it actually works. And then once you're there and you realize, oh, okay, like I actually can't do that. And that, you know what I'm saying? And just like, but it's just so funny to think as a kid or as a 17 or 18-year-old graduating high school, like you're so naive to think, I'm going to do this. I'm going to conquer the world. I'm going to do that. And that's a good attitude and a mentality to have. But
no, you should definitely be confident. You should feel like you have something to offer because we all have something to offer.
Totally.
But I think I was a little overconfident as well. And I definitely got humbled my first year at college. And that was something that was really good for me. I think just having that really humbling experience of struggling in college. And now when I graduated from college, I didn't feel the same, right? Like I felt more like I'm more in a point in my life where I should be learning as much as I can and giving back wherever I can as well and contributing however much I can as well, but should really be focused on learning rather than talking at this point.
Absolutely.
And before we go into your college, like how was the college application process for you? What colleges do you apply to? Was it hard? Did you get help? Who helped you with those?
Yeah. So I applied to, I think 11 schools.
Damn.
I applied to all of the UCs except Irvine. No, I applied to Irvine. I applied to all of the UCs except for Merced, Riverside, and UCLA. Then I applied to University of Washington. Applied to this small liberal arts school in Oregon. I applied to Northwestern, Dartmouth, Brown, Stanford. I think that was it.
What was your number one?
Yeah. I actually really didn't have a number. I mean, I always kind of wanted to go to Stanford. That was kind of my parents always like, oh, it'd be so cool if you went to Stanford.
Yeah.
Casual,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Super casual.
Why not?
So I mean, I think part of me, I don't know. Stanford was definitely kind of something that we always talked about, but I wasn't super confident about getting in there. I also didn't really know if I wanted to go there. Not like, if I had gotten in, I would have probably gone for sure. Like,
Right.
who am I? I'm
Who
like,
wouldn't?
yeah, pass on Stanford. I don't need that.
It's a big baller move.
But I mean, I think more realistically, I was really interested at UC Berkeley. And then I ended up, I also applied to Columbia. That was the other one.
Oh, nice.
I ended up getting the chance to interview for a couple of those schools. And after I interviewed with Brown, I just had this great experience with my interviewer. He's a super awesome guy. He had just graduated like a year. He was only a year out. And we just had this great conversation. And after that, I was just convinced. I was like, Brown is the school for me. That's where I need to be. Blah, 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 blah.
Did you visit the school?
I'd never visited Brown.
Have you been to the East Coast at least?
No.
Oh my God. Yeah. That's funny.
So for me, I think what my parents and I had talked about was I'm going to apply to a bunch of schools based on what I think would be a good fit. And I was lucky enough that my parents were kind of just like, you can apply to as many schools as you want and it's okay. Like, because the applications are expensive.
Yeah. They cost money.
They cost a lot of money, but my parents were kind of like, you can apply anywhere you want to apply because they were more willing to put the $70 into the application than pay a couple $100 to fly me to the East Coast and figure that out. So it's more like, get into the school first and then we can go visit them afterwards. Because it's kind of, when they say it like that, right, it's kind of a better investment in terms of how much money you're going to spend.
Absolutely.
Did you visit any schools before you applied?
Yeah. So I visited UC Berkeley a couple times. And then I also did like the Cosmos summer program. I don't know if you guys know what that is.
Yeah.
It's basically like a math and science camp in the summer.
It's for nerds.
For nerds.
Okay,
Yeah.
I have
Math and
no
science
idea.
camp at a couple of the UC campuses. So I went and lived at UC Santa Cruz for 2 months, my summer after my freshman year of high school.
Very
How was
cool.
that?
Really liked it. It was super fun. I was like the youngest person there. Like everybody was a junior or senior in high school. And I was like this freshman. So I was definitely in way over my head, but it was so fun. Yeah, I lived in the dorms. It was the first time I lived away from home, and I was away from home for 2 months. And yeah, you like go to your kind of class, project, whatever thing during the day. You go to meals, and then you have like your social time. And it's obviously super structured. They're monitoring us like we were all minors.
Yeah.
But it was super fun.
That's really cool that you kind of got the,
You get a
like, dip your
taste.
toes in the water as a freshman in high school. So you haven't.
So you have a what?
So you have an idea of what it's like to be in college, you know, to be around those people, because that's kind of what it's like. And like that's kind of something that I went through when I went to school, like the growing pains, like, okay, I don't have my parents here now. Like luckily all the freshmen have like meal plans, so you don't have to worry about food and stuff. But I just remember that was like the biggest thing, like not having my parents. Like now I have to wash my clothes. Now I have to like do my bed. You know what I'm saying? Like just take care of myself.
I remember the first time I did laundry.
Dude,
I was
me
lost.
too, bro. Like I did my laundry and I messed up my blankets, like my comforter. Like I closed the door and it got caught on the door and it like ripped my comforter and all the cotton got out and like messed up my blankets. So like I had to go get new blankets. That was like my first time actually washing my clothes.
Dude, I got all my white clothes to turn pink.
Really?
I'm an idiot.
Wait, really, you guys?
Like
I'm not proud of it, but I'm
it's
going to
bad.
tell people what happened. Yeah, don't mix your
Yeah.
whites and your colors, especially if they're just brand new colors, because then they die and they bleed into your whites.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just stuff like that, like just getting used to being by yourself, like kind of taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
But it's really cool that you got that experience. So how did you narrow down UC Berkeley?
So, yeah, basically I started getting my acceptance. Yeah, I mixed the two. I was going to say acceptance and rejections, but yeah, my exceptions. I got my acceptances and my rejections, and kind of as they were coming in, I would react to them. I was like, oh yeah, Berkeley would be cool. But then when it actually came time for the decision to come out, I actually did a tennis match that day. And I was waiting all day for the decision to come out. It didn't come out. I went to the match, waited. I kept refreshing in between, like at the match.
So you're one of those people who wants to know right away? Because I was the opposite. I just kind of wanted, I'll just check the next day or whatever. I know.
You
it's
guys
gonna
didn't get
sit
yours
there.
in the mail?
There's some that you get in the mail, and there's
Yeah.
also some that you get, like you have to log
Online.
onto the portal, and then you have to check
and then they send you the
status.
physical stuff later.
Later,
okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I didn't want to. My mom kept calling me and was like, "Did you get in? Did you get in?" And so I refreshed it a couple times while I was at the match and it didn't find anything. And then eventually got home at like 11 p.m. And then like I locked I remember this so distinctly. My mom was like really stressed. She really wanted to know whether or not I got in.
That's so much pressure.
And
Yeah.
I was so nervous because I was like, this is it. Like this is the school.
What school is it?
UC Berkeley.
Okay.
this was a school, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I like locked myself in the bathroom and I had it on my phone and I was like loading it up. And I just remember seeing the confetti like open on the screen, and I was like, "No way,
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
no
Dude,
way!"
That's such a good feeling.
And I literally ran out of that. I was screaming, and I ran straight to my mom, and she didn't even understand what happened at first. She thought I didn't get in because I was screaming.
Yeah,
But yeah, I was like, I got in.
that's awesome. And that was your number one school, like
After that, everything was a rejection.
really.
Yeah,
I feel that.
because so the UCs come out like end of March, I think.
It's
and
earlier,
then whatever, it comes out, and then all the private schools come out after that.
Mm-hmm.
And I got into a couple of private schools, like some of my backups, but I didn't get into like Brown, Columbia, or Dartmouth.
How's that? The rejection.
It's tough. I remember because I had a very similar experience with Brown, where I was on the phone with an alumni from Brown as well, and she'd played soccer, and so we were talking about that for a minute, and I just felt like my interview was perfect.
Yeah.
Like I had so many flashcards in front of my desk, like I was so ready, and then I had the interview, and I was like, dude, I killed that. It was all over the phone interview. It wasn't like a Skype or anything. It was just on the phone. And then like she's like, oh my God, yeah. And then she's like, do you have any accolades that I could tell you about? And I was like telling her, I was like, oh, I got small school boys soccer athlete of the year. And this like, oh, definitely, we're definitely gonna mention that. Like, you want to play soccer at Brown? And I was like, yeah, I'd love to. And she's like, oh hell yeah, like it's so much fun. I played my first 2 years. Or like she was super cool. She's like, I'll definitely make sure to mention that. And like it just I left such a great impression. And I was like, dude, like this is sick. I can't wait. And then you get the rejection. You're like, oh, okay. Like, oh, it wasn't as good as I thought it was. Or actually, I think the interview was still good, but I think it's the rest of the application that just wasn't strong enough.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, I don't know, to be honest, like how much the interviews actually mean in the overall application process.
I'm not sure either.
But what was cool was the guy who I interviewed with for Brown, he like reached out to me afterwards because I guess they find out as well what happens to the people they interview.
Oh, really?
And he was like, hey, like, don't worry about it. And was kind of just like really reassuring to me of that I'm doing the right thing for me. And, you know, if this wasn't meant to be, it wasn't meant to be. But there's lots of other doors that are probably open to me and blah, blah, blah. But it was just
Super
like
cool.
a really nice email. And I was like, wow.
What a good guy.
He didn't have to do that.
Yeah, he doesn't have to do that at all. That's awesome. So, okay, you get into Berkeley. Did you apply undeclared or did you apply?
I applied undeclared.
Okay.
Yeah.
And at that point, did you have an idea of what you wanted to do? Or what you wanted to major in?
At that point, I was still really thinking about going to law school. And I was kind of thinking, you know, what other majors that would set me up best to go to law school.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of like history, economics, business, that kind of thing. But yeah, actually one more thing though about college is I do think it is really important to visit beforehand and figure out like if you can see yourself living there. And I was really lucky that I got to do an overnight program at Cal. I got invited to do that. So after I got my acceptance, I went there for the weekend and spent the night in a dorm with like some freshmen and like, yeah, and got to sit on some classes as well.
Are you still friends with those people you shared on the first day?
Nah, to be honest, the people I stayed with were weird. They were weird. No, they weren't other accepted students. They were like freshmen at Cal.
Oh, they were already
at
there.
Cal. Yeah.
Oh.
They were nice, but like it was kind of weird.
Huh.
Yeah. It was
Did you visit Davis before you got in?
No, not at all.
You just kind of
Honestly,
jumped
it
into
wasn't
it?
even on my radar when I was picking colleges. Cause I think I told you, or I mentioned it before, that I wanted to go to school in SoCal. Last time I was like, there's women, there's weather, and there's just more stuff to do.
Yeah.
Like I was super just stupid when I was making my decisions or whatever. But then when I got my financial aid package from Davis, and I was just like, dude, like they're paying me to go to school here. Like I can't. And I was just thinking about my parents as well, like how I don't want them to have to pay for all, like have to take out loans or having them to have to pay for my tuition and rent and all that stuff. And I was like, I'm gonna go check it out. And luckily enough, I had my mentor drive me out there, and I checked it out. I think it was just a random day. We just showed up, we took a tour or whatever. We scheduled a tour, and then we just went around the campus. And I was kind of sold after that. I really enjoyed it. But
Did you fall in love with it immediately? Or was it just like-
I really liked it. Yeah,
That's awesome.
It was nice weather, and it was just like it always for me. It felt like a bigger Fort Bragg. So I still felt like, I don't know. It didn't feel like too much. It didn't feel super overwhelming for me. And I felt at home when I was there. So I was like, I can definitely do this.
That's awesome. Meghana, you mentioned earlier that you got humbled your first year, like your freshman year at UC Berkeley.
Yeah.
So what was that like, kind of like being top of your class in high school and then going on to college and kind of starting from the bottom?
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I never got below an A- in high school.
That's so impressive. That's so crazy.
Even A- were not super fun.
Yeah.
And then I got to college, and so also I think I was really naive and uninformed about how I picked my classes my first semester.
How did that go? Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty. So back then, back in the day, when I was going into Cal, we used to have a thing called CalSO, which was called Cal Student Orientation, and it was basically there were several dates throughout the summer where you would go overnight. So you would get there one day. We go through all these orientations where you basically get to sit on all these info sessions about different majors and learn about the requirements, what classes you need to take, prerequisites, all that stuff. Get to sit in on some classes, talk to some professors, and basically just meet the people you're going to start at Cal with. But it was like several days throughout the summer. So there were like different cohorts and groups that went through. And so also what you did at CalSO was you signed up at the end of the 2 days, like right before you left, you would sign up for your classes for that fall. And I went into that super blind. I didn't know that you could read reviews about professors. I didn't know that you could look at grade curves for classes and see how professors grade. I didn't know that you could get any of that feedback or like kind of helpful information that helps you figure out whether or not the class is going to work for you and really help you learn what you want to learn.
And for someone going through that right now, do you know what resources are you talking about for someone that's going through
for sure.
that?
If you are looking at classes, most professors are on ratemyprofessor.com. Rate My Professor was like a Bible to me because it's really important to have a really good professor who genuinely, because I mean, I think especially at bigger universities, like that are research focused universities, you sometimes have professors who are there for the research, not to teach, which is fair enough, right? That's what they want to do.
Right.
But they have to teach as part of their like gig, that's part of their researching gig. But that doesn't make them the best professors. And that's not necessarily the people you want to learn from. And I think especially for me, what I was really lucky to have growing up in Fort Bragg was a really personal connection with all of my teachers. So that was also hard in college, was having professors who were sometimes apathetic or who didn't really care to make the connection. So if I could, read that about a professor, it would definitely sway me. Some people, it doesn't matter. Some people just learn. They just sit there and they just learn, or they learn the material on their own. They don't even care whether or not who's teaching it.
I'm not one of those people.
Yeah. And so, to each their own. But for me, it was really important to have kind of a personable teacher whose passion for teaching kind of came through.
Yeah, that always makes the experience way better.
Way better.
When you enjoy going to class and you enjoy the teacher.
Yeah.
I always like when my instructors are funny. Like when they crack jokes. And I would always read that in Rate My Professor. Like, he's such a great guy. He makes lectures fun. He's funny. He cracks jokes. Like I had this professor in Sanborn that was like, when they make movies and they bring in like, for example, like if they were to make Jaws today, they would bring in like a marine biologist to make sure everything like is accurate. This guy was like, I think he might have been a paleontologist. I think that's the word. But like he was kind of like the guy that they went to for Ice Age, the movie Ice Age.
Oh, no
and like
way.
at the end, like they credit him in the movie.
Oh, what?
But he was like super funny, and he was like this tall, like goofy looking dude.
Dude, like a real life Ross Geller.
Is that what it is? Paleontologist? Am I right about that?
That's what he was.
He studied ancient horses. Ancient horses. That's what he did. But he's such a cool guy, and back to your point, like the whole Rate My Professor, like it's so important when you're picking your classes to kind of understand what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah.
And like the way the teacher structures the course.
Yeah. The way it's for sure not just, their teaching style, but also assignments, midterms, papers, finals, like what do those tests look like? And so Rate My Professor, I guess more specifically to Berkeley, there was this website called Berkeley Time where you could look at like the historical grade curves in the classes and kind of see, I guess, to be quite honest, it was like it would tell you how difficult or easy a class was. And like that is not super helpful when you're picking your like prerequisite and major, required courses, because like you just got to take those and you got to do well in them.
Yeah.
But it was really helpful for picking electives, because sometimes if you were taking really challenging coursework that was required for your major, it's nice to have a class that's a little bit easier just to balance things out.
That's a really good point. I would do that all the time too. I would take like 3 major classes and then I had a super easy elective. Like I took an elective, I think it was on insects, some random thing. And the professor was super chill. And it was so easy. Everything was just like at a book. Like you could take your book with you when you were taking tests. Super laid back. It was an easy A.
And I feel like those are also really important too, because it is also important to remember why you enjoy learning, right? And a lot of times those elective classes remind you why you enjoy learning or why you're curious about something to begin with. But yeah, I took some cool electives. I took this one class that was like the history of soccer.
Nice.
That class was so fun. It was the first time they ever taught that class. The professor was just like this super awesome British guy. And he was like, I bring up that he's British because he's literally exactly what you would picture a British person to be who loves soccer.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Sounds like a good guy.
He was awesome. His class was so fun and so interesting. And like when I talk about the history of soccer, he wasn't just talking about like the origins and the evolution of the game itself, but also its connections and kind of intersections with history, politics, and cultural movements.
Super cool.
It was super cool.
Yeah, I took a class on earthquakes once.
Really?
It was pretty interesting. Too.
How was that?
It was all the earthquakes here in like California, and then we have like the continental plates that like collide with each other, something like that. It's a lot of stuff, but yeah, it was pretty interesting. And it was super laid back too, like easy A. And
Yeah, I had this. You brought up a British instructor. I had this lady that was in a geography class, and I remember one time. This has nothing to do with like school or anything, but she told the class, she's like, "Yeah, like over in something about the pub," and everyone like started laughing. She's like, "Oh yeah, over there in." She's like, "We think you guys are like Americans are weird for drinking cold beer." She's like, "We drink warm beer over there."
Warm beer.
Yeah, and everyone was like, "Yes, dude." Yeah, exactly. But I just remember that because you said British instructor. Did you guys have anything like that in Davis? Like she said, Berkeley.
No,
time?
Ray, my professor, like I
like
would
the main
always
thing?
use it as well. Like all our friends would always be like, "Oh, check him on Rate My Professor before we sign up classes."
Yeah.
But we didn't have anything that would tell like about the curve or the difficulty of a class.
Yeah,
or
that's
stuff
like kind of going in depth with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't
That's
you
super
mention
cool.
something about like when you were Russian that they had like something like that, like the test or the more information on like a certain course?
Oh, when I was rushing for a frat. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, like the frat that I rushed for, they had a thing where like once you were inside, they had like resources of previous exams from like all these classes that the other brothers had taken or whatever. And so like once you were in there, if you were taking a similar class, you could just ask this one person who was like who had the computer and had all the information. And you'd be like, "Hey, like I'm taking Chem 2A, Intro to Chem or whatever. Like, is there any tests or work or anything that is with that about that class?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, sure." And you like look it up in the database. It's like, okay, we have like 3 exams and we have like all these whatever like practice exams. And so you could just take all that stuff and it would just help you study. So I thought that was super cool that they offered that.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and then anytime you would take a class that wasn't on the database, you would, if you could take anything for them, you would just give it to them, and then they input it into the database for you.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Giving out cheat codes.
yeah.
So going back, your freshman year, how like you mentioned you got your first C.
So I picked my classes pretty naively, and I ended up getting a C in my calculus class, which was super humbling. It was definitely an experience where I was like, there were definitely things I could have done better. Definitely, I think what I really realized is that, you know, in high school, I got by with doing not too much with, I mean, it worked hard for sure, but it was not super challenging either. And I really didn't have good study habits going into college. Like in high school, I procrastinated a lot and I was able to get away with it and just kind of cram work out at the last minute. Not true in college.
Yeah.
The timelines that I was used to working on in high school did not work in college, where I would just put things off to the last minute and not prepare.
Yep.
Really came back to get me. And so I had to develop much better study habits. And it was super scary coming home for winter break after I got that C, because I was just kind of like, I felt like because I think what it really was that I knew I could have done better. Like if I had worked harder, if I had made some different choices, I could have had a different outcome. And so that was what I was most scared to tell my parents, because I think, like I said, right, they were always just like, as long as you do your best, then that's all you can ask from yourself.
Yeah,
and like
that's all that matters.
I didn't feel like I had done my best.
Was that the last C you got in college?
No.
Would you say that after you got that, it kind of just like
Reality check?
Yeah, kind of relieved the pressure of
Yeah.
now I can't. You know what I'm saying? Like
It was actually put a lot more pressure on me, because I
was
was going to say my GPA was super low because of that. And that was really stressful thinking about grad school and what I wanted to do after college, because that GPA matters a lot more than what I did in high school.
Yeah.
Right. And like, that's the GPA that's going to get me into grad programs or not. But yeah, I got a C again the following semester. I got a C plus, a little bit better. But I got a C plus in the second part of the calculus series. I think truthfully, I didn't have a really solid foundation in calculus, and didn't learn it that well in high school. And at Cal, all the kids in my calculus class had taken AP calculus, IB calculus, and gotten 5s on the test, passed all these super hard exams.
That's insane.
And I didn't even have AP calculus in high school.
yeah.
That's
It wasn't an
calculus?
option.
Yeah, that's something we talked about. It's just like, it almost seems unfair because you have no say in that. You go to high school, you take all the AP classes that are available to you. You think you're prepared for this college class. Like it's intro to calculus, right? Or it's intro to chem or intro to bio. And then you go there and slowly you're starting to realize like all the people around you, or the majority of the people around you, they have such a stronger foundation than you'd ever possibly could have imagined. You're like, oh man, I thought I was solid. And then you're like, oh no, this person's that's taking like 2 or 3 calc classes or bio classes or chem classes ahead of what I took in high school. And so like when we're going through stuff in that class, this is all review for the kids. This is all review for all the people around me. And I'm over here trying to like write all these notes. I'm like, this is all new to me.
Yeah.
And so it makes it so much more challenging and super daunting to just be in that classroom and like know that people around you are just like so much smarter than you. And like,
Yeah, that was one of my biggest things, is like just kind of feeling intimidated around my peers.
Totally.
Like these guys know way more than I do.
Totally.
Especially
Yeah.
this last semester, like in my corporate finance class. And a lot of them were accounting majors that the teacher kind of, I wouldn't say favored, but he would like call on them and they would have like discussions in class. But just listening to them talk, I'm like, dude, these guys know so much. And I'm just over here like learning, you know what I'm saying? Like on the fly. And that was like one of the biggest things that I've always struggled with in school, like not feeling, maybe insecure is the right word, but just kind of like with my foundation of what I know now compared to like what I'm about to learn. It's like, is it like, do I know enough to kind of go into this class? That's one of my biggest things.
Yeah. I think thinking back on that time, though, being super intimidated by those, like I was also similar to what you guys said. I was really intimidated and I felt really out of my league and really uncomfortable in that space because I had been so used to just, doing well. So doing not well was pretty deeply uncomfortable and unsettling. But I think there are different ways to react to that situation, right? And I wish I would have reacted differently instead of trying to hide how badly I was doing, which I definitely did at the time. Instead of hiding how bad I was doing, I should have just asked for help. I should have been more open about it. I should have been more focused on trying to learn what I didn't know than stressing about the fact that I didn't know it. And rather than putting myself in a position of like, oh, everyone's like better than me, I'm way behind the curve, I need to like catch up on my own, just being willing to learn and being willing to take help from people.
Did you ever go to tutoring or like office hours or?
Yeah, I did. Eventually, I did start going to, there was like this student learning center on campus where they had help for, the really popular courses, which the calculus class I was in was one of those.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did start getting help there and that was pretty helpful. I think I could have gotten more help though. I think I was a little bit unwilling to admit how much help I needed.
Yeah. It's hard because like you say, like it's about like applying yourself. And when you look back, obviously like hindsight is 20/20.
Yeah.
But when you're in the moment, you're like, I am trying my hardest. It's like, well, maybe I could have gone to office hours. Maybe I could have gone to more tutoring. Maybe I could have not gone out and just like studied the whole night. You know what I'm saying?
You think about that stuff after it's already happened.
Again, hindsight's 20/20.
Because I completely like resonate exactly with everything you said. I was like, holy crap, that's me. Like I was doing the same thing. There was times I even took tests and I would like take these classes with friends, and we'd go like get done with the midterm, and then we finally get our midterm scores back. And I didn't do so hot as much as I thought I did.
Everyone's high-fiving.
And then and my friends would be like, oh yeah, I got like a high B or whatever. And there's times where like I'm not proud to admit it, but like I lied just so I could like feel like I could fit in because I just was like I felt like I was like damn, like I got a low C or something, and like you guys got a B plus and an A. I'm like damn, like and I studied with them. I was like what did I not click? What didn't click for me?
Yeah.
And so I think I did the same thing where I kind of just hid behind it instead of like, oh man, like you got an A, like what did you do? Like can you help me out? Like I got a C.
Seeking help.
It's it's so simple and so easy to just ask for help, but at the same time it's like it's the most challenging thing to do because you have to admit to yourself and to other people that you didn't do as hot as you did or I thought you did, and you need that extra help.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. It's like, why is it so hard to ask for help? Like when I think about my first year in college, I definitely should have asked for help. I needed it for sure, but I was so unwilling to admit it and so unwilling to feel vulnerable, I guess, about that. I don't know. I was pretty insecure about it, to be honest. Like I was pretty insecure about how hard college was for me. It was definitely a point of, it was something that I was like ashamed of, I guess.
No, totally.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have ever felt this, like I'm just kind of like talking from my experience, but when you are like starting off in the class, like a lot of the times the first week of class or the first few weeks, like the teachers tell you like, hey, there's tutoring hours, there's office hours, come, make sure you come. And you don't realize it or you don't admit it till after. You're like, man, I should have listened. But in the moment, you're just kind of like so caught up on what you're doing, like you got your foot in here and then over here and over here and over here and your extracurricular activities. So it's like, I can understand it, but like the resources are there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You hear about tutoring, you hear about office hours, you hear about all these things like that'll help you in the class.
You just need to apply yourself.
Exactly. Yeah.
I had friends who was always like religiously go to office hours, religiously go to extra tutoring. And I even found out there was classes in Davis or like special groups where he would go and he would have his essays like read by an upperclassman or like a grad student, and they would help him edit his papers. And I always thought that was the craziest thing. I was like, how did you find out about that? He's like, oh, you didn't know? You go to the study hall and you blah, blah, blah. Like, it's from 3 to 4. I'm like, what? And like, maybe I just wasn't looking, or maybe I didn't check my emails, because that was another thing. Like, I was super just like anti-email, because I always thought I was going to get in trouble or something. I don't know. That's another story. But, and so
email
like, I
was
didn't
stressful.
know.
I feel like, I don't know why.
Stressful.
I definitely, there were times where I would just avoid my email. I don't know why. Just opening it up would give me anxiety.
Huh.
Yeah.
I wonder why.
But the resources are out there. You just need to apply yourself. You need to find it. You need to ask. Like, there's no shame in asking somebody else for help.
Yeah, absolutely not.
It seems weird, but you can just do it. Like, trust me, you'll thank yourself later.
Even now, like starting out in my career, there's definitely times where I found myself unwilling to admit I don't know how to do something. And I think what the most important thing is, though, I don't know if we'll ever all be able to just always admit when we don't know something or when we need help, but to always recognize when we feel that way. Because so my first real big internship that I did was between my junior and senior year, right? And that internship, I realized so much, like how much time I wasted just trying to figure things out on my own versus just going and asking my manager or asking somebody on my team how to do something or find something. I felt like I was bothering them. I felt like I wasn't doing my job if I couldn't do it on my own. Like, I felt like I wasn't proving myself, right? And I recognized after that, I was like, I need to recognize when I'm doing that so I can stop doing it. And it's something I still have to keep reminding myself. It's not easy to stop doing that. And like, I still remind myself all the time of like, just admit when you don't know something. It's worse to try and figure it out on your own and like pretend you do know something when you don't. And literally it happened to me yesterday. I was talking to somebody on my team and he asked me this question and I was just like, I kind of fumbled for a minute and then I was like, no, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I think most
times
times you'll find people are like happy to explain it to you. They'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. So this is how it works out. Anyway, so going on. So then you struggled your first year, you got a C in the first semester, and then you got a C+ in the following one. And what happened? Did you just change, or
I learned a lot. So I definitely did better my second semester, but I was still figuring things out, right? I was still trying to reconcile what happened the first semester and figure out how to do better. So sophomore year, I definitely came back and did a lot better. My sophomore year fall, I got a 4.0.
Nice.
And I was taking a lot of units that semester too as well. But basically, I was just like, I need to ask for help. So I doubled down on office hours. I doubled down on like all these different tutoring services that were available on campus.
Dope.
The essay thing was super helpful. I went to that for sure all the time. Yeah, I would go and like, I'd have my essay, have them read it, get some feedback. And after you do it a few times, you start figuring it out, right? But you have to go through that and like, it's definitely a huge growth period, right? Because what you did in high school doesn't cut it anymore. And you have to figure out how to level up and get better.
Yeah. You have to like create new habits.
But yeah, I would go to office hours and I would ask questions. Like you said, if I didn't understand something, I was kind of like, actually, I don't know how you got there. And for sure, there were times where TAs and GSIs would look at me and be like, you're stupid. Like, I don't know why you don't understand what we're saying. Yeah. But at the same time, I was like, okay, maybe I'm stupid, but I need to understand how to do this thing and I need you to help me understand it.
Yeah. I'd rather know the answer than look smart and walk out and then take the test and fail it because you didn't know the answer.
Yeah.
So when did you decide on your major?
So my sophomore year fall, I took Econ 1 and I loved it. I really liked the class. I was super fascinated by Econ as a discipline and what you were studying and what it was studying. And I really liked my Econ professor. I think she was a big part of it as well. So I decided to do Econ. And at Berkeley, Econ is an impacted major. So you have to meet a GPA cap. And you apply. There's no application process. It's just like submitting your class records. So I applied at the end of my sophomore year and I got in the beginning of my junior year.
Nice.
Did you have any plans with that? Like after school, what you wanted to do with that?
So I was super undecided about what I wanted to do with my career. So I decided to first focus on picking a major that I really enjoyed. My parents, another thing they always told me was you need to find what you enjoy, because then what you do and what your work won't feel like a job. It'll just be something you do and that you get enjoyment out of, right? So I focused on picking a major that I enjoyed studying and learning about, which was econ. And then after I figured out I was going to do econ, I was like, okay, what can I do with an econ major? I could technically still go to law school. Econ majors statistically do well on the LSAT, which is the entrance exam for law school. It could have been an economist. It could have done a lot of things. I was in a few different business clubs, professional clubs on campus, and got exposure to some different jobs through that, finance, accounting, consulting. And I didn't really feel like any of those were for me. I was also in the student legal clinic, and that's also where I was kind of like, law maybe is not for me right now, or at least that type of law was not for me. I also realized, though, on that note, just kind of a tangent, though, going to law school does not mean you become a lawyer. I realize there's a lot of other things you can do with a law degree other than being a lawyer. And so,
like what?
You can go into public policy. You can go into business. You can go into anything. Like, you can do anything you want with a law degree.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Neither did I.
So what, like you were saying, like, what did you?
Yeah. So then I was really lucky that I had a lot of people who were kind of older than me and were going through like the job recruiting process, and I got to learn from them and hear about all the things that they were working on. My big in my sorority at the time was going through recruiting and figuring out what she wanted to do post-college because she was a couple years older than me. And she was super interested in product management, and she was going through that process, and she had just done an internship in product management, and through her I learned a lot about what it was, and it seemed to be something that kind of vibed with me and like my personal skill set and what I felt like I would enjoy. So yeah, I just set up some more kind of informational interviews, reached out to people through LinkedIn and friends of friends who were in the job or in related jobs, and was kind of like, this is what I think product management is. This is why I think it would be a good fit for me. Like, can I learn a little bit about what you do and why you like it or don't like it? And a lot of times those conversations can be really awkward, but you learn so much in them.
Yeah. How did you get your foot in the door? You touched on it earlier, like what you're doing now, but how did you, after graduation?
Oh, like how did I get the job that I have now? Yeah. So I think job searching is just brutal. Like, you have to submit like 50 applications to get one interview. It can really wear you down, and it just feels like you're never going to get anything.
Where are you finding these applications, or where are you submitting them from?
Yeah. So a couple places. Berkeley had this thing called Handshake where you could submit applications where they had job postings. Also Google search, if you search the title you're looking for, a bunch of job listings will come up through there. LinkedIn, lots of job listings there. And then also just if you know the companies you want to work for, right, you can go to their website directly and apply as well. So like if you're really interested in working at Facebook, you can go to Facebook and they have all their open jobs listed there.
Cool.
Or any company really. So yeah, I was looking at LinkedIn though, and I found this program that I'm in right now, the Visa Associate Product Management Program, was on LinkedIn, and I read the job description, and I was really interested that it was a rotational program. Like I said, I wanted to have that opportunity to rotate through a bunch of different jobs and find my niche and find what I really liked about product management, or what I specifically wanted to do within product management. And I was like, this is a really good opportunity. There's also not that many rotational APM programs. So I was like, this is kind of rare. And I was like, I really want to follow up and make sure I get this. So I applied on LinkedIn, and then I did a LinkedIn search of visa recruiters. And I found this woman who was a visa campus recruiter for like San Jose State University or something like that. So not even my university.
Yeah.
But I basically reached out to her, only not paid for it, but I signed up for like the premium LinkedIn membership where you get like 1 month free, and you can like, with that, you can send messages to people you're not connected with, because otherwise on LinkedIn you can't message people without connecting with them, I think. Or you only get a certain number of those kinds of something like that. But basically I like signed up for premium, and I reached out to her and basically wrote kind of a really abbreviated cover letter where I was like, hi, my name is Meghana. I'm an economics student at UC Berkeley. I'm graduating this May. I saw this job posting and I think it's a really great opportunity. I think I'm a really good fit for Visa because, and I kind of highlighted really quickly a couple of my experiences or skills I thought I could bring to the job. And then the other thing I did was I also wrote why I think Visa was a good fit for me. I think a lot of times we think about how we can fit into the company, but it's as important that we also articulate what value the job is going to bring to us. And I think
that's a good point.
Because I think it shows that you're thinking about, more than just, you're thinking a little bit further ahead, right?
Yeah.
So I basically wrote that, and I was like, I'd really love to learn more about this opportunity, and I'd love to set up a call with you to tell you more about myself, something like that. And it was like right before spring break, I think. And so I sent that off and then went home for spring break, and I wasn't really thinking she was going to reply to me. I really wanted the job, but I just didn't know what was going to happen. But yeah, like 10 days later, she responded to me on LinkedIn, and she was like, thanks for reaching out. You sound really interesting, something like that, based whatever. She was like, I'm going to flag your application in the system. So she flagged me, I guess, and like a week later or 2 weeks later, a recruiter for because also companies have different recruiters for different jobs. So she wasn't a recruiter for the job, actually. She was like, this is not my job listing, but I'll flag your application. Because when I sent that message to her, I also attached my resume.
Nice.
Gotcha.
Smart.
And so, then a couple weeks later, someone who was a recruiter for the program reached out and set up an interview. And so then I went through 3 interviews after that. So the first one was just a behavioral interview. So they just kind of wanted to learn a little bit about me, my experiences, generally make sure that I was like a normal person and, just, meeting the standards, right?
Right.
And then the second interview was a case interview where they kind of gave me a product question. And I had to talk through or come to the interview and we kind of talk through. So first I pitched like my answer to the question that they asked. And then my interviewer kind of double clicked and asked me some more specific questions, threw in some scenario twists of like, okay, well, say that didn't happen the way you thought it was going to happen and this happened instead, then what would you do? Kind of question. Yeah. And then a couple more behavioral questions as well. And then my last interview was also, it was more behavioral, but it with like some specific questions to the job. So like learning a little bit more about me and my experiences, and then also asking some, situational questions as well. I think because there's like a whole list of competencies that they're looking for in the person that they're going to hire for these jobs. And you can't cover every competency in one interview. And so they kind of space them out over several interviews and they ask you about different experiences that you have listed on your resume.
That makes sense.
And then I got the job offer. And what was crazy was also with the job offer, because it's now a full-time real job, right? Like I have a benefits package, I have a salary, all of this stuff. And my big who, introduced me to product management, when I got the offer, I kind of reached out to her and I was like, I got the offer, and she kind of helped coach me through the interview process as well. So she was super awesome.
Nice.
But then when I got that, I was like, oh shoot, like, is this salary like on target? Like, is this the type, like, am I being paid a fair amount? That was another thing that I hadn't really thought about before. Like, how much am I getting paid and is it fair?
Right.
And so I had to do some research on, what are other APMs in San Francisco being paid.
You hadn't accepted it then yet? You had just been offered the position?
So they gave me the offer and had all the details. And then I was kind of like, okay, is the salary fair, blah, blah, blah. And then I kind of told her and she was like, you could get like a little bit more, but it depends because rotational programs are sometimes set. And so she coached me through it. And I actually went back and negotiated a little bit with my recruiter.
Dude, that's so smart.
And I ended up getting like a little bit more money, which was pretty cool. I was pretty excited about that.
That's
I'm not gonna lie.
You got guts.
Yeah.
That takes guts.
Dude.
And then I accepted the offer.
That's
but
awesome.
I think we all focus so much, and what I really learned through that process is we all focus so much on like selling ourselves to these companies. And I get it too. At that point, like after you've submitted so many applications, you've gone through so many interviews and like not all of it works out. You're kind of in this place where you're like, I'm desperate. Like I need to have a job.
I just want to say yes.
Yeah.
I'll take anything.
Yeah.
But we all have to recognize that there's something we bring to the table, right? And we should be getting paid a fair amount for what we're bringing.
Absolutely.
And asking for more is not wrong.
Totally.
Huh.
My sister just did the same thing because she just got finished her master's and now she's going to be a counselor. And she was getting multiple offers from different schools and stuff. And that was one of the things she was asking me, like, what should I do? Should I go to this place or this place? I'm like, okay, well, how much is this person paying you versus this person? Like this much. And like, I could ask for a little bit more, but I just don't want to do that. And I was like, dude, who cares? Like you just did your master's, you're credentialed, you have all the background, you have every right to ask for more.
Yeah.
Like you are qualified. She's like, really? Like, yeah, do it. And then sure enough, she talked to her friend and then her friend gave her a pep talk too. And she did it. And she got like $5,000 extra or $6,000
good for her,
a year.
man.
And I was like, dude, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
And it made her decision easy for her.
And yeah, the other thing is it doesn't hurt to ask, right? Like at this point, they've already invested money in you. They think you're a good fit for the job as well. They want you to work for them. Not to be like super cocky of like, I was like a hot commodity, like Visa really wanted me, anything like that. But it's the fact of the matter too, right? Is they've already invested money in you. They want you for the job. If they don't get you, they have to start over again, which costs them money as well. And you're totally entitled to advocate for yourself. Like I don't know. I feel it myself. And when I say we, I'm talking mostly at myself, is that we're also scared to advocate for ourselves and to ask for more. Like we feel like we're asking for too much. At least I feel like I'm asking for too much sometimes. But there's no harm in asking.
Absolutely.
Totally not. That's awesome.
So what happens after the third rotation?
So I'm entering my third rotation soon. October 1st is when I start that. And then I actually just got an email today, right before this, about what's going to happen once the program ends, once we hit our 2-year mark, right? Oh, also, today is my 1 year anniversary at Visa.
Nice.
I
Wow.
just remember that.
Congrats.
Thanks.
Good day to do the interview.
Yeah, because I got that email, talking about next steps, and I was like, oh shoot, like today is my 1 year anniversary at Visa.
Sweet.
But yeah, so basically what's going to happen is at the end of the program, the product teams they'll have to figure out which product teams have headcount, which is basically they have the budget to afford another person on their team. Because right now we're getting paid through this programs fund. And so when we are put on product teams, it doesn't come out of that product team's budget for salaries. Basically, every team has a limit to how much they can spend on people, right? So the product teams will have listings, and we'll kind of get to see what is available and put in our preferences for which teams we'd like to go to and stuff like that. And then
Cool.
we'll figure out where we end up permanently.
That's awesome. And do you see yourself there long term?
I'm not sure. I really enjoy working at Visa right now. I think there's a lot of great opportunities there, and I'm super grateful for all the experiences that I've had so far. I think it'll really depend on, and it's still a year away, in a year from now, what kind of opportunities I'm looking for and whether or not they have those at Visa. Because that's the other thing is not every company has what you're looking for at the moment you're looking for it, right? It depends on so many other things that are happening, where that company is in their strategic plan, who else is working at the company. Sometimes the role you're looking for is just not available. And so it'll depend on that.
Yeah. Well, Megan, we talked about everything we wanted to talk about. Is there anything you want to ask us? Or is there anything you want to bring up? Any projects you have going on? Anything you want to mention?
I don't know. I'm thinking about this now.
Yeah.
Just I'm really interested in that you guys started this podcast. I think it's really awesome. I think the idea behind it of learning lessons from people other than yourself is so important.
Totally.
I guess, but I guess like you guys are interviewing other people. Are you guys planning to do an episode where you talk about yourselves a little bit more? I know you guys did that with your first episode a little bit.
Yeah. So do you want to answer this?
No, you can go ahead.
Yeah. So we were gonna do like we're planning on doing like an update kind of thing of like what we've gotten out of doing this so far, and just kind of like what's going on in our lives, because we started like a month ago.
Yeah,
a month
over
and
a
some
month
change.
now.
Yeah. So we were thinking to do that after, because my class is going to start up next week. His are going to start up next week. We're going to be really busy.
Yeah.
So I was thinking we would have more to talk about then. But yeah, I mean, we plan on, originally we're going to do one, every odd episode was going to be us.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah,
so we're just kind of like,
people like this
yeah.
Not that people don't want to hear about you, but that's a lot to talk about yourself.
Exactly.
You have to you have to share a lot.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
sure.
Absolutely. And that was one of our biggest things. Like, well, we're probably going to run out of things to talk about eventually, But if we were to kind of space it out like we're going to do, like it's probably better.
Yeah.
And again, we're learning on the fly.
Totally.
So like, yeah, that was my answer. What do you think?
No, I mean, I completely agree with you. I think it's just awesome hearing everybody's story. It's awesome hearing their takes on it. And then I think the biggest thing for me is like when I talk to people like you and I hear your story, it's like I can relate to that. Like I had no idea you felt that same way about like your classes or your emails. Like, dude, I went through that. And I'm sure so many other people who could hear this and could relate to it as well. It's just like knowing that feeling like you're not alone. People go through this, and then hearing what we would do differently in that situation, like just ask for help. Like that's awesome. Like I wish I had that platform going when I was in college, and I had a podcast that I listened to that people I could relate to, and I could hear them talk about these things and then hear them say like, this is what you should do. I'm like, okay, you're right. Like I just need to get out of my head, and I just need to email, or I just need to check my emails, or I just need to ask for help. So
checking emails.
That's what I'm taking away from it. Yeah.
Actually, that's one last thing is I did this project at Berkeley in one of my classes about, why are Berkeley kids so stressed? And the huge thing is like this imposter syndrome, right? Where so many people feel like they're not supposed to be there, or they got there by accident. And they're so like we both said, we were so unwilling to share that we were struggling. We were not doing as well as the people around us.
Right.
And it's actually a really common sentiment, at least what we found among the people at Berkeley that we talked to and we surveyed about like 200 students, was like most people were struggling in some way or another, academically, financially, personally. People are going through things, and it's really hard to talk about those things publicly and to kind of expose yourself in that way.
Yeah.
And because nobody talks about it publicly, you feel like you're the only one struggling.
Absolutely.
You feel like you're the only one who's not doing as well, which puts even more pressure on the situation, because you're like, I shouldn't feel this way. I should be doing better than I am doing right now. But yeah, so I think it's super important to shed light on those things, and I'm trying to be more open about it myself and like my own personal life and, you know, my family and friends, and not always just look like I'm doing well.
That's one of the biggest things that like I'm going to talk for myself, like that I've gotten out of this. Cause I was going to bring this up, but I remember when we used to hang out a lot, me and you in high school. And I remember one time you told me like you have a lot of pictures of yourself on your Instagram. And I don't think you meant anything by it, but like it just got me thinking. I'm like, I wonder what that is. And like after doing this, like I kind of see like social media, like because we're like posting about it and you're trying to grow, you know, like I see it more as like a platform and as a tool now, like to kind of like spread an opinion, an idea, something like to kind of like reach more people. But I used to see it as like to get clout or to, you know what I'm saying? Like I wouldn't post a picture because I'm like, oh, I wouldn't get that many likes. But like as I get older, like I'm shedding that mentality, and I don't know what it was. Maybe insecurity. I think I was just insecure. Like I didn't want to post a bad picture, or I was mainly doing it for the likes. But now
everyone wants to be liked. Everyone wants to be approved.
Yeah. And now I'm just like seeing it as less as that and more of just like, if I like the picture or if I think people need to see this or I want people to see this, then I use it like that, you know?
Yeah. I can't believe I said that to you.
Yeah. I don't think you meant anything by it, but it was just like one of those things where like, you post a lot of pictures of yourself on your Instagram. I'm like, what does that mean? I was like, what does that mean? And she goes on with the conversation. I'm just like sitting there thinking like, damn, like getting in my head.
At home late at night, you're just like, oh my God.
Yeah. I couldn't go to sleep. No, but yeah, after doing this, like that was one of the biggest things, like kind of just like maybe shedding that and just using it more as a tool because it's very beneficial.
It's really hard to be vulnerable. I struggle with it a lot, but I think it's important.
Absolutely.
Totally.
And for other people like going through it, you know, like maybe because I was middle of the pack, Gabe was like upper and you were number one. And to see like somebody that's like that, like number one and can go on and maybe still struggle, like, okay, like maybe I'm not alone, you know? Yeah. And to see and to hear your story and like, okay, like really all it is try your hardest. Put your like all your effort into it, you know. There's no secret. Everyone can do it, you know. So I think it's really cool to see. Yeah. And anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think I'm good. Well, thank you, Meghana. This was awesome. I enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
Do you want to plug up your Instagram or something like that?
Is it okay if people reach out to you?
Yeah, for sure. I don't know how you guys do that, but yeah, you can put my @ in the description or whatever. People feel free to reach out. I'm happy to answer questions. I think that's another thing. Like, whenever people reach out to me on LinkedIn and whatever, I'm super open to it because I was in that position. I was reaching out to people on LinkedIn and I appreciated so much. People gave me some of their time and it helped me a lot too. And if I can give that to somebody else, I'm happy to.
It's all about helping people out.
All right. We'll end it on that. That was a great episode. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely.